seconds to get that going. Okay, this is People of the State of Michigan versus Brian Leach, docket number 20-6FH. This is the time set for sentencing in this matter. And before I go any further, Mr. Leach, can you confirm for me that you're okay with proceeding on the sentencing remotely instead of having to bring you here to the courtroom?
Yes, I'm okay with that.
Okay, great. Then, Mr. Leach, you were convicted of 2 counts of receiving and concealing a stolen motor vehicle, and those are each felonies, and because the prosecutor's proceeding against you on each one as a habitual second offender, it makes the maximum penalty up to 7.5 years in prison. And you do have the right to be represented by an attorney. You are represented by Mr. Abbott, who is here. And Mr. Abbott, have you had a chance to go through the pre-sentence report with your client?
Yes, we met by Polycom last week, the week before.
And I have a correction on the cover sheet, but I'll take that first, I guess. It says Killebrew agreement, a minimum sentence set at 18 months. My notes reflect it was a maximum minimum of 18 months. It wasn't a set 18 months. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes, Your Honor.
I can't argue with you, Your Honor. I'd ask to defer to my client on that if that's what he recalls. I was not present at the plea.
Well, I was, and I take notes, so it's not to exceed 18 months.
Yep.
And so I changed that on the cover sheet, and I
Right.
changed that in that first paragraph under evaluation and plan. And now your corrections, Mr. Abbott?
On the same page, Your Honor, it indicates that there's some pending cases,
Yes.
and there's a few things missing there. There's 2 counts misdemeanor out of the 12th District Court in Jackson. And there's also a case up in Clare County in 80th District Court for receiving and concealing a motor vehicle and a financial transaction device crime up there. So there's 4 other jurisdictions with warrants for his arrest.
Okay, I added those. That was reflected in the body of the report that there were 4 jurisdictions, but yeah, I wondered about that too, why it only had 2 on the cover sheet. I added those. Anything else?
Not from me, Your Honor.
And how about objections to scoring of the guidelines, Mr. Abbott?
No.
Okay, Ms. Allen, did the people have any corrections to the report or objections to scoring?
Only, Your Honor, to clarify that we discussed before we went on the record, I have a more detailed restitution statement on behalf of all the victims of the FTD cases and their banks. Specifically, some of the victims were out money for purses that were stolen, and then also how much money was due for the banks. I provided that to the court and Mr. Abbott, and when he has a chance to go over it with Mr. Leach, my plan hopefully is to submit a stipend order to the court for the full amount of restitution, unless we need to go for a hearing.
Okay, but no other corrections or objections to scoring?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, and I'll ask for the record if there's a victim who wishes to be heard. I believe the answer is no, but I just want to reflect that I made this inquiry in advance, and had anyone wanted to appear and be heard at this sentencing, they were certainly free to do so, and we would make it so that they could. But there is no one. Is that correct, Ms. Allen?
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right, did the people wish to be heard?
Yes, Your Honor. And there were a number of cases that got wrapped up here from Mr. Leach. And it's hard to know what to say in elocution about this defendant. With his history and the number of cases and felonies, prison here was inevitable. It almost just seemed like a matter of how long. And that in part will be up to him and how he wants to maybe benefit from the sentence that he's going to receive. But even though each of these charges was 5 years or less, because he has such a history and there were so many, he had almost guaranteed himself a trip back to the Michigan Department of Corrections. And it's even with his cases now pending in these other jurisdictions, it's the same thing. So I'm hoping that in this sentence, maybe there will be something that clicks and we're not here again. I'm not saying people can't change. I certainly hope Mr. Leach can. And I have talked to every victim on these cases. The number of them, they were in agreement with the plea and we'd ask the court to follow it. Most of them were just happy that they thought their case seemed small because it was maybe just credit cards or something, that wasn't as important, but just the sheer number of them and his history is where he, I think a prison sentence is, like I said, almost guaranteed. And typically on these kind of cases, there wouldn't be, but it's what Mr. Leach's pattern has been and has not stopped since he's really been a part of the system. So like I said, my hope is that this time maybe something will change and he'll come back and we won't be seeing him again.
Thank you. Mr. Abbott?
Thank you. I think Mr. Leach has hit the bottom here. He's discussed with me how he's seriously looking forward to staying away from the drugs that really drove the behavior here. I know that's not an excuse, but once methamphetamine gets a hold of you, it's a powerful enemy. And so I think he's doing battle with that enemy right now. And we're going to sort out the other cases in the other jurisdictions by making sure they're informed of his incarceration. And hopefully that he'll spend the next, the balance of the 18 months on, working towards rehabilitating himself. And as far as the restitution goes, Your Honor, in addition to the new information about the financial transaction device victims, there was some question in Mr. Leach's mind about whether or not the value of the vehicles or the damage to those vehicles had been exaggerated. So I guess I'm hoping that in the next, say, month or so, the prosecutor and I can work out an agreement on the whole thing. And if not, we'll ask for a hearing. But I think it's possible to reach an agreement on that. And I agree that I'd ask the court to go along with the Killebrew agreement for the 18 months and let Mr. Leach get started.
All right, thank you. Mr. Leach, what would you like to say?
I'm responsible for what I've led to. I really appreciate restitution. That's really all I have to say. I've been waiting quite some time since now, and I made my dues right with God and family and friends, and I'm ready to take my punishment, my life.
All right, thank you. I did get a letter from you, and I just wanted to explain to you that, the reason that your sentencing was put off was because early on when this whole coronavirus crisis hit, we were told pretty early on that the Department of Corrections was not taking anyone, and to my knowledge, they still are not. So any sentence where, initially it looked like someone was going to end up in the Department of Corrections, we didn't put as a top priority. Now we're working our way through them, and I'm trying to get them done so that when the day comes that MDOC does start taking people, there won't be any delay. Those sentences will already be in place. So yes, I think everybody understands at this point that this is a Department of Corrections sentence, which is actually quite difficult to do for theft type offenses. Your history, I agree with the prosecutor, and these cases pretty much led to that inevitable conclusion that that is the appropriate sentence. It's not, however, the end of the story, because you could use this with as many charges as you have and as bad as things seem right now. You could use this as a fresh start and sort of do your sentences and wipe the slate clean and start over. it's up to you. And, you know, you could make something here out of this that would be a turning point in your life. You'll have some opportunities for programming and things in Michigan Department of Corrections, and I suggest that you take full advantage of that. I understand that a lot of what seems to be driving this behavior is just multi-substance abuse issues. And, you know, this again is an opportunity for you to get away from that and, you know, work on some of these underlying issues. And if you can do that, Mr. Leach, you could find yourself living a much better, happier, healthier, more productive life. And I hope that you'll take it seriously and do that. I am going to order you to pay $130 to the Crime Victims Fund, $136 in state costs to the county in the amount of $500 based on the State Court Administrative Office calculated average cost for criminal case in Ingham County. Restitution to be determined, and you are committed to the custody of the Michigan Department of Corrections for a period not less than 18 months nor more than 90 months. You receive credit for 209 days already served, and you have the right to file an application for leave to appeal your conviction and your sentence in this matter. You're entitled to an attorney at public expense to assist you in doing that. If you're making a request for one, you have to make it within 42 days of today's date. It will explain that more on the form that we'll send out to the jail for you. And like I said, to my knowledge, they're still not taking people, so you will be at the jail for a bit longer until the Michigan Department of Corrections determines that it's safe to start taking people in again. But that will conclude our sentencing unless you have any questions, Mr. Leach.
So, am I sentenced to 18 months? Or
Yes, with credit for 209 days. And
so I'm going to prison for 11 months.
for 8, well, yes, with the credit, yes.
That's
And
ridiculous.
you aren't going right away because they're not taking anyone yet. Okay, that will conclude our sentencing hearing then, and you can tell them there at the jail that you're all set.
I am done.